We are live for MLB First Pitch, and it is Thursday, July the 25th. And this is the benefit of going live at 11 a.m. Eastern because we have several early starts today on Thursday and some noon Eastern, a 1 o'clock, a 2:30 Eastern. We're going to get them all for you live here on the show. Hey, but if you're watching the replay 24/7, it's never a problem because we got some night games as well. I am Steve Merrill, filling in for Dan Alexander. He'll be back next week hosting the show, and he's allowed me to jump in the guest seat this week, and I appreciate it. And I'm joined by two of the best cappers in baseball at WagerTalk.com, a man whose location is never in doubt because it's in his first name, Tokyo, last name Brandon, and then, of course, Adam Trigger, who is already scheduling his college basketball visits for this fall and winter, but he's looking at some baseball along the way. Guys, let's get right to it. And, Adam, I'm going to start with you because we have two very early games at 12 noon Eastern, but, hey, we're on 11 a.m. Eastern live on Thursday, so it works. And you're going to do a big game breakdown on my Washington Nationals against the Anchorman's San Diego Padres. What are you doing with this early start? I went to the July 4th game at 11 a.m. Nationals beat the Mets. Can they win a 12 noon Eastern game today against the Padres at home?
Well, I sure hope so, Steve. I know I'll get yelled at for this because it's like $5 day, and I definitely shouldn't be giving this out for free, but I didn't decide to play this until a couple minutes ago when lineups came out, and the game goes off in less than an hour. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to give it out in the first pitch. So if you're watching, pays to watch these shows live now that we're doing them at 11 a.m. I am on the Nationals plus 1.5 for a 4% play. The lineup I referenced, that kind of got me over, to the window, if you will, was Luis Ariz being, out, day off for him. I already had the Nationals sort of, in my crosshairs for a play in this series. I believe we talked about it on Tuesday when we did the first pitch show. Glad I didn't fire that since they lost that game. And then I actually thought about them last night as well, and I'm glad I didn't fire that either because they lost 12-3. They've now lost all 5 in this series this year. So this will be their last regular season chance to get a win over the Padres. I think that's a little bit of a motivating factor right there. But all in all, I think there's reasons that the Padres are very sort of inflated in a getaway day spot. And, it gives me enough reason to take the plus 1.5 head start with the Nationals. So I'm not going to get into Dylan Cease being elite. Anyone with 2 eyes and a brain understands that this guy is just filthy. His last 2 starts, 13 innings pitched, 21 strikeouts. He's a premium starting pitching option, even when he's not throwing the ball as well as he's throwing it right now. He's a premium option. So we know that. And as sports bettors, that's what we're trying to, always trying to find value. You're going to have value, typically playing against a guy like Cease. I think you get even more value here with the Nationals based on the fact that the Padres have won all 5 games this year. And, won in blowout fashion last night. Nationals got up 3-0 and then gave up 12 unanswered runs to get blown out. So, not like the Nationals lighting up Dylan Cease is not really part of my handicap. Like, could it happen? Of course, it's baseball. Guys have bad days. But, I'm betting this understanding how good Cease can be. However, I do think there are like small little edges that maybe, favor the Nationals here. The first one, the Nationals are better against right-handed pitching. Collectively, as a team, they're just much better against right-handed pitching. So even in this case where we get a really good right-handed pitcher, it's still a right-handed pitcher. The other thing is I actually think the lack of exposure that some of these guys have had to Cease might actually help here. Like almost like, being a little bit naive might not be the worst thing. Normally for pitching, I like to go against guys that, have had exposure to a team. But in this case, Cease is so nasty, it might work out better just, going up there, see the ball, hit the ball. And like the Nationals have some guys that are doing that. Like right now, I mean, Juan Yepes is on fire, one of the hottest guys in the league. Cease, it'll be the first time he's probably going to get to go up against James Wood. So, it goes both ways. Like he could easily groove one and Wood could hit out of the ballpark. But one thing Cease is almost guaranteed to do is walk guys. That's really, it's not his undoing, but he will give you some base runners to work with. 5 of his last 7 starts, he's walked 2 or more batters. So I expect the Nationals, if they can be a little bit patient, we'll get some base runners out of that. As far as Patrick Corbin is concerned, So we've got the other end of the spectrum here. We've got Dylan Cease, who's consistently priced as a top option, Patrick Corbin, who recently has been priced as a bottom option. But I really think he's going to have a good good second half of the season. I think it'll be his last season in the big leagues. This is the final year of a 6-year deal. Little local intel that I talked about on Friday when I gave the Nationals out with Corbin as a best bet on WagerTalk today, and it won, was that I think he's building a lake house up here on Oneida Lake. He's from the area, and I believe he's going to retire after this year. And I think he's just going to kind of go out and have fun the next couple months. He's well respected there. The younger pitchers, he's been a mentor to them, and I think it actually could be. I think he could pitch well because of that. And we saw it in his last start: 6 innings, 1 run, 3 hits, 6 strikeouts, no walks. It was as good as he's thrown the ball in a while, and I think he could kind of build on that. The other thing that the Padres, they're a little bit worse against left-handed pitching, and now you're going to polarize out of that lineup. Of course, that's notable. He's one of the best hitters in baseball. So, maybe the Padres don't knock the cover off the ball today like they did yesterday. And then, of course, they're in a noon getaway day game. I had the Rockies yesterday. I don't know if the Red Sox, I didn't expect them to just not be ready to play and give up 20 runs, but it is a tough spot, for road teams sometimes, especially a road team that's already had a bunch of success against the team that they're playing and has already won the first 2 games of the series. So, the Nationals really need this game. The 2 losses to start this series, they're now 6 back of the wild card. It is getting into like desperation mode for them. I don't think they can afford to lose any other ground. So for all of those reasons, I think there's a lot of value on the +1.5 here. I played it when it was like -108, even at the current price of -110 or -115. I think the Nats are going to be right in this game. And so the Nationals +1.5 is a 4% client play for me on Thursday.
That starts early. Don't miss it. Deep in-depth analysis, and that goes at noon Eastern here in less than an hour. Adam Trigger giving you an actual free best bet. Yet another reason to watch us live at 11 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday here on WagerTalk TV. And you won't forget, if you click subscribe and you hit the bell as well for an instant alert. And don't forget also, the beauty of the live show here is that we interact with you. We check your questions in the live chat, whether you're watching us on the regular WagerTalk TV channel here on YouTube, also on YouTube Shorts, Instagram Live. Hey, Joe Ranieri is producing today. He's loving those Instagram Live questions. If you can decipher them, we'll use them. The day drinking has begun. TikTok, X, Twitter Live. Lots of different ways to watch us and interact. Throw the questions in here. We're going to get to some of these other games in a moment. But first, I want to get to a big game breakdown from Tokyo. Brandon, you're going to look at one here between the Mets and Braves. A very interesting matchup, to say the least. First of all, the Mets coming off the Subway Series against the Yankees, of course, the last couple nights. And now they're taking on the Atlanta Braves, who are making a run for the Phillies in the NL East. Mets have been playing pretty good baseball for the most part the last couple months after a slow start. They're at home. Chris Sale on the mound, though. He was supposed to go in the second of that doubleheader yesterday against Cincinnati, but he is now going tonight. Small road favorite for the Braves against the Mets. Probably the best matchup tonight in baseball. Brandon, what are you doing with this one?
Yeah, before I get into that, it takes some serious testicular fortitude to bet Patrick Corbin today. Thank God, Adam, you have some bravery, my friend. But yes, you're right. He did win his last start, so you're correct in that. Woo, that's a good one. Let's get to the Braves and Mets, though. Chris Sale and Luis Severino. I think this is the second time Chris Sale got a start pushed back. And these things can kind of mess with your rhythm because these pitchers are kind of creatures of habit. I've worked with them when I was a scout in Major League. And these guys, they have their routine. And when you shake their routine, it really shakes them off their game. Not to say that Chris Sale's not a great pitcher and that he's not going to come out and have a good game today. I don't really have an actual play in this game, but I'm going to break it down for you. I have the Braves currently hitting 23rd out of 30 teams in Major League Baseball, but I have the Mets hitting 13. Bullpens, both teams have top 10 bullpens at the moment. Great form for both sides. And I have Chris Sale ranked 6 on a curve of 30 MLB pitchers. I take 300 MLB pitchers and I curve it to 30 so I can compare it to the bullpens. and the lineups. And I got Luis Severino at 22 out of 30. So definitely pitching advantage for Atlanta here. However, the information I want to give people regarding this game, if they're going to bet it or not, I think the total was 7.5 when I last saw it. Seems very low to me because, yes, Chris Sale is a great pitcher, and yes, the Braves are not hitting very well. But if you look at head-to-head matchups, the Braves, the Mets hit Chris Sale quite well, actually, and it's a big sample size of 115 at-bats against. He's got an average against of 322 and an OPS of 863. So when I was a scout, I always I like to use OPS as kind of a guideline when I'm checking how batters do against a pitcher, and I'd say 750 is kind of my line of whether you're good or bad. And if you're over 750, that means these batters are kind of having their way with you. 863 is a pretty bad OPS to have in 115 at bats against the team. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Mets can put up some runs today. And on the other side, we got Severino against Braves batters. He also not quite as bad as numbers as Sale, but his numbers are not very good either. He has a 254 batting average against and an 818 OPS. So I think 7.5 is a little low. It's not an official play, but I think both of these teams are going to put up some runs. So look at a team total over perhaps, or a first 5 team total over, because both bullpens are quite good. But yeah, I think the books are kind of overcompensating for these two pitchers, and I think both teams probably are going to put up some runs today. Not an official play though, but that's my breakdown.
Yeah, and what's interesting about the team totals, Brandon, is that the game total is sitting on 7.5 juice to the under, and 7 is obviously such a key number, so you're losing a little bit of value with the over 7.5, but you can get both team totals still at 3.5, which gives you a 7 basically. So yeah, playing both team totals over 3.5, I would say you're more likely to at least at worst get the split there with one of them hitting 4. So it's a good approach here if you do like the over to maybe put some of it on the team totals. And you heard that from Tokyo Brandon himself. And Tyler chiming in the live totals. Chat says, what's that?
Sorry to jump in there, but also team totals for the first 5 innings. If either one of them are 1.5, the over might be a good play on that as well.
Well, let me get your thoughts on this too. Tyler in the live chat here on YouTube is saying that the Braves line is dropping. He thought that was strange. Any thoughts on that?
The Braves line is dropping, meaning...
well, it opened 125. Now, I don't know if that was with Sale, to be honest, because once again, he was supposed to go last night, but we did see an overnight of 125. Yep. It's down to minus 110 now.
Yeah, and it's probably because of basically what you just mentioned. Is Sale's been pushed back a couple times, I think, now. And honestly, these pitchers, I mean, I've been around these guys. They're seriously like mentally anal, if that makes any sense. But they really are into their routines. And when their routines get shooken, they really tend to implode, some of these guys. So that could be part of it. But the other part is probably the fact that the Mets have actually had their way with Sale in the past. And that's when Sale was in his prime. So that's 110 at bats, over 300 batting average, and 880 OPS. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of these Mets can score some runs on Sale here. Probably is the reason it's dropping.
Yeah, I have a thought there too, real quick. It's dropping because sharp bettors have been playing against the Braves for a couple weeks now. And I talked about this on Tuesday. Unfortunately, got rained out and had a great number with Reds plus 1.5. But just look at their lineup. Look at the 6 through 9 that the Braves are trotting out there on a regular basis lately. It's almost like AAA caliber, right? And then you've got Matt Olson, who's been in a yeah. I mean, you've got Matt Olson, who's in a horrific slump. At least up until. I would have to even go back and see if he got a hit yesterday, but he was 1 for 35 or something going into yesterday's game. So, but you still have like Brandon said, you still have the name of the Braves. Some of the pitching names are still there. So, I mean, sharp bettors are fading the Braves on almost a daily basis at this point. Every line moves against the Braves right now. I'm kicking myself for not taking the Reds yesterday because I didn't I'm sorry for sorry. Yeah, no. Yesterday the Reds won, right? Like I got my days confused, but I think the Reds ended up winning that game like 9-4, and it was it wasn't the same pitching matchup I had the day before, so I stayed off of it. But like the point I'm trying to make here, sorry, I tripped over my thoughts there for a second. Yet the Braves have been a there's a lot of sharp people playing against the Braves like almost on a daily basis. I'd be scared to back them right now.
They're not
the Reds actually won outright 9-4 yesterday, and the reason I remember is because Mark Zeno right here on the live show gave out the Reds' first five. He gave out the Reds' first five as well for a 12 noon Eastern game. Yet another reason to watch us live here at 11 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday on WagerTalk TV. And it's interesting, boys, also as we wrap up this Mets game. The Mets right now, I like to look at road numbers because it encompasses all different types of ballparks. You know, an extreme examples like the Rockies. You don't want to just look at their overall numbers because they're playing in altitude half the time. The Mets have the best on-base plus slugging in all of baseball in road games this year, but they're only 16th at home. They have not been as good offensively at home this year. We'll see if that changes, but something to keep an eye on. But overall, they are the better offensive team in this game tonight against the Atlanta Braves. Yep. Adam, speaking of a good offensive team, let's get to the one interleague game here. And it's also an early start at 12 noon Eastern, so I want to hit this one out of the gate. And that is the Orioles against the Marlins as they wrap up an extended series. And we have Bruzen in the chat asking, are the Orioles going to win the first five, or are they tanking again? Adam, what's your thoughts on Baltimore at Miami, another early game that starts in about 50 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would have tried to find a reason to take the +1.5 with the Marlins here. Like if we were just looking at this game like in a vacuum, right? Like not, taking into consideration what's happened the last couple days. I don't really want to do that now that the Marlins, have won the first two games of this series. That being said, I wouldn't be dying to just like lay $2 with Baltimore. The reason for that is, like, obviously I love Corbin Burns as much as the next person does, but Roderick Munoz can throw hard. And the one thing that the Orioles, their offense has kind of struggled with everything lately. But even when they were hot earlier this year, the one thing they would struggle with, kind of consistently was velocity. And, Munoz will throw 95, 96. The majority of his pitches, he goes like fastball, sinker are both like in that 95, 96 range. So when I say like high velo, I mean 95 plus. But he's very, very inconsistent. So if he gets blown up today, not surprised, but he could also come out and fire 6 scoreless the way it's been going for the Orioles right now. And I really wouldn't be surprised there either. So I guess my only real take on this game is not the time to like lay -1.5 with the Orioles. Probably not the time to try to use them as a $2 favorite. It would have to be Marlins or pass here for me, but I'm really not confident in the Marlins pulling off a sweep, so probably just a pass.
Joe Ranieri's Miami Marlins, not Drew Martin's Miami Marlins.
Actually, a lot of people. The Marlins get a bad rap, but to be honest, they're hitting top 10 in MLB right now in current form, and their bullpen is ranked number 2 in MLB according to my rankings. So that is a dangerous team. I am not messing with this game, and I do love Corbin Burns. He's one of my favorite pitchers, but don't know what to expect. And, when we're betting these games, we're predicting the future, and you predict the future on things that for sure. And I don't know for sure that the Baltimore Orioles are a better team than Miami right now. So I'm staying away from this one.
To Brandon's point, they are hitting better. I thought, like, if you go back, like maybe 6 weeks ago, we did a show. I think it was us or me, Brandon and I did a show, and I said, this might be crazy thought, but I kind of want to buy the Marlins as they start to like bring up some of these guys from AAA, because the Jumbo Shrimp, Steve, everyone's favorite AAA mascot, the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, had like 5 guys. Exactly. 5, like they had some guys like that were kind of like consistently in the top, top like sort of 30 hitters in AAA. I know Jonah Bride was one of them. I think he got, I don't know if he's still up or down, but the point is they eventually some of these guys are going to infiltrate this lineup. I know they got Chisholm back, and like, I guess the point here is the Marlins are probably a play-on team, at least for right now, because they couldn't have been lower in the market. So, like, you should be looking either to bet on the Marlins or just to not bet against them. It's tough to pick your spots, right? Because they're still going to lose baseball games. They're still a bad team. But also, Brandon makes a good point. Their bullpen is, like, very underrated at this point. Probably won't be for much longer. I bet some of those guys get traded. But for right now, they've got some relief pitching, too. So, yeah, dangerous team. Wouldn't be playing against them.
Yeah, and TikTok, don't forget about TikTok. They're asking about the total, maybe the over 8 in this game. And I'll point out that if you look at the team totals, Miami right now, guys, is 2.5 for the game. Going for the series sweep here. We talked, Brandon, you just mentioned that their offense is in good current form. I mean, Brandon, talk me off a Marlins over 2.5 team total, especially if you think that offense is hitting better.
I can't talk you off it, but actually, I have the Orioles bullpen ranked number 6, and I have Corbin Burnes on a curve of 30 ranked number 5 in MLB as a starter. So, yeah, low scores can be expected. But like I said, I have the Marlins ranked top 10 in hitting. I would go with an under in this one, to be honest, because both bullpens are really tight, and starting pitching is really tight too.
Yeah, and that game total, by the way, Brendan's 8, and it's juiced 8 under. We're seeing a little bit of money come in right now on the WagerTalk live odds screen towards the 8 under.
Yeah, that's my concern too, is that you run into the Corbin Burnes masterclass here, and he just goes 7 scoreless, and you're having a tough time hitting any sort of over in that scenario.
Well, we also have maybe one of the best teams in baseball in a focus spot too, right, with the Orioles. And we don't talk a lot about situational handicapping in baseball, but it is hard to imagine they won't be focused here after losing a few in Miami. So we'll see how that plays out. That is an early game. My Baltimore Orioles and my Washington Nationals both playing at 12:10 Eastern in about 40 minutes here today on Thursday afternoon. All right, Brandon, we're going to get to some live viewer questions. They're coming in, and we're going to get to some best bets in a moment. One person is asking, by the way, about that Angels game. Gary Sorensen is asking about the Angels tonight. He thinks they look good. Well, Brandon's actually got a team total for his best bet on the show in that game between Oakland and Anaheim, so we'll hold off on that one. But, Brandon, I do want to ask you about a game that's coming up here at 4 o'clock Eastern this afternoon, Giants and Dodgers. And what's intriguing here is that Kershaw is back on the mound as a former MLB scout. And also, you just talked about Sale, creatures of habit. I'm very curious to see how you think Kershaw will fare this afternoon and how you would play this. The overnight was as high as minus 145. You see the screen there says minus 140. But if you check the screen that matters, and that's the WagerTalk live odds screen, it is lighting up like a Christmas tree right now. It's down to minus 120 as we speak. Money coming in against Kershaw and the Dodgers. Brandon, what are you doing with this game this afternoon?
I'm not betting this game, but, when people come back from a long hiatus, it usually goes one of two ways. They either implode and completely vomit on the mound, or they look better than people expected. But the one thing I can say with a certain amount of confidence is that he's not going to go deep into the game. Most likely, it's a 5-inning maximum for him. If he gets shelled, he'll come out earlier. But if there's an outs prop for him, I would say under 15.5. 15 outs is exactly 5 innings. So I doubt he records an out in the 6th inning. Both teams have pretty poor bullpens. They're bottom 10 bullpens currently. The Dodgers are hitting number 6 in MLB, and the Giants are hitting 26th in MLB. So according to my rankings. So he could do well, he could do poorly. But like I said, when I'm predicting the future, I like to stick with things that are reliable and probable, and it's probable that Kershaw is not going to go deep in this game.
Yeah, Adam, what are your thoughts on Kershaw here? I mean, we got Ruzin saying he loves Kershaw. Eric D in the chat saying Kershaw is a stud. A lot of people are back in the day, it looks like, but for me, there's a lot of uncertainty there.
Yeah, I mean, I did catch some of his rehab start. Most recent one with OKC. I mean, he got knocked around a little bit. I think he made it through 4 innings. I wouldn't be surprised if he, came out and made it 5 and had like a respectable start, because the one thing, Kershaw, even though he gets away, he's the type of guy that, like, he's such a good pitcher, like in the sense of, like, he just knows how to pitch. He doesn't rely on his overly rely on his stuff anymore. That like I could definitely see him, keeping this Giants lineup off balance. I don't think very highly of the Giants, from an offensive standpoint. So, but at the same time, you couldn't like talk me into betting this game. I need to see a little bit more, but to just say that he's going to I don't think you can say one way or the other because again, he gave up some contact in that AAA start, but he can get, he's one of the few guys that can get away with contact and still have a pretty good start at this point in his career. Like he doesn't need to overpower hitters. So it's a tough call. And then of course you got Logan Webb on the other side. Like I'm not necessarily dying to go against him. It's what I say about the Dodgers on a daily basis. Like they can win in spite of poor pitching. They've been doing it literally for 2 months, right? Like they've been trotting guys like Gavin Stone, Landon Knack, Robleski. Like Kershaw's not worse than any of them. So if you're and the Dodgers have been minus 115 with those guys on the mound, so why not Kershaw minus 115? But again, you won't see my money on it. But that's just my take there.
Here's
and Tyler pointed out
a
in the
little bit of
live chat
advice
that
I
this
could
line.
give.
Yeah, go ahead.
A little advice I could give on this game is Freddie Freeman is 14 of 34 against Logan Webb in his career, and Ohtani is 3 for 9. So I think Freddie Freeman to get hits, runs, RBI over 1.5 would be a decent bet for this game. Because the Giants bullpen is not very good as well. And Freddie Freeman can hit Logan Webb. Freddie Freeman was pretty much the only guy who produced anything for the Dodgers yesterday as well. So,
yeah, I like it.
Yeah, that's another good point, Brandon. They have a huge, the Giants have a huge, or the Dodgers have a massive sample size against Logan Webb. Like that's a really good point.
Yeah, and I'll say Tyler's mentioning how this line is jumping, like I said as well. And he said it's almost getting to a point where he's intrigued by some value at minus 125 on the Dodgers. Excuse me. And this is what I've been pointing out. Who would have thought this point in the season, over 100 games in, that we would get Kershaw and the Dodgers against anyone as a home favorite at minus 125? We all thought they were going to be minus 300 every game at this point and win 110 games this season. So it is kind of intriguing, the value we're starting to get with the Dodgers. Like you said also, Adam, a lot of these other guys recently have been in the low minus 130, minus 140 range. So we'll see how it plays out at 4 o'clock.
Same thing that came up on the show. Same exact scenario that came up on the show on Tuesday. And the Dodgers, won in spite of their starting pitcher, I would say. So, again, fade them at your own peril, I suppose.
Yeah, I said out of the break, they're kind of a play-on team for me, despite having 60 wins, Brandon. They're a play-on team still.
These guys are trotting out Joe Kelly and Ryan Yarbrough as relief pitchers, and it's horrible. And they're still winning. So imagine if they had decent pitchers. This team would be on fire. But like Adam said, great point. At the beginning of the season, we thought they would be minus 300 every game this season. So, minus 140 certainly is value if you look back in retrospect.
Yeah, it's surprising to me. Didn't think we'd be here. And I thought the Dodgers over 107 wins or so was still a good play. And they still might get there. I think they're a play-on team here this second half of the season, and they're flying a little bit under the radar. They're having a disappointing season right now with like the third best run differential in all of baseball. Speaking of disappointing seasons, Adam, I got to ask you about this special game tonight because this afternoon, Tyler is asking if you're pulling the trigger with the White Sox plus 1.5 run line. You get them at plus money, man, plus 105 on that run line against the Rangers. Look, the White Sox are the worst team in baseball, especially when Crochet is not on the mound. But the Rangers have been a huge underachiever. World Series champs, struggling to even have a winning record this season. They're currently third in their own division, 2 games below 500 still. Scherzer, we talked about Kershaw. How about another future Hall of Famer who's had limited starts this year? Max Scherzer on the mound. Tyler wants to know, Adam, are you pulling the trigger with the Sox plus 1.5 this afternoon at 2 o'clock Eastern?
Not today. I'm still concerned that so first of all, the White Sox, I tend to look at them at home a little bit more. I know like the 1.5 on the road is always like more appealing because you kind of get the extra at bat, but the White Sox are not appealing on the road. And, the one has to think that the Rangers could turn it on, right? Like they're going to get healthy. They've already started to get some guys back. It's like I don't think they're going to win I don't think they're going to like come back to win the West, although it's not like totally out of the realm of possibilities, because I don't think the Mariners are running away with the division, and the Astros probably aren't either after their performance, earlier this week against the A's. So like the Rangers are the logical team to get back in it, because it's obviously not going to be the A's and it's probably not going to be the Angels, but I'll need to see more. I guess my point is, they've won 4 straight. Maybe they're the team that makes up for a little lost time and just goes out and starts pounding these lesser teams. For that reason, I can't do it here. I could see the Rangers just blowing them out. They've won the first 3 in this series. I wouldn't be surprised if the Rangers just won big again today. I don't know. I'm probably not fading the Rangers anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, Texas is a team kind of like the Dodgers, and the Dodgers are 19 games above 500, but you could say at some point the Rangers are due to start playing a little bit better. They have the potential and the talent in that lineup, so we'll see if they make a run here in the second half, currently 3rd in their own division. All right, we're going to get to best bets in a moment, but there's one other game I want to touch before we get to 2 best bets, and that, Brandon, is a 3 o'clock Eastern start between the Rays and Blue Jays. And I also want to get a big picture thought from you with the trade deadline looming in less than a week. Look, you're a former MLB scout. You're the best person, in my opinion, to ask at WagerTalk.com about this. How do you handicap with the trade line looming? The reason I mentioned that with this game specifically is the Blue Jays, in my opinion, could be one of the teams that tosses the towel, could be sellers. They're having a disappointing season. Your thoughts on that and this game in general as well?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about Guerrero getting traded. I don't know if they would make such a bold move, but the Blue Jays have kind of had these same kind of ingredients, and it's not really getting them anywhere for a couple years now. So I think it's time for them to blow up the kitchen and buy some new groceries. As far as capping is concerned, the trade deadline doesn't really affect, because I don't for the future. I cap for now. So after the trades are made, then I say, oh, okay, they've added this should give them a boost. And then I'll cap after that. But yeah, I mean, anytime a team gets rid of someone like Guerrero, you'd have to definitely fade them. Right now, I have the Blue Jays batting right in the mediocre Mendoza line, 15 out of 30 teams. And their bullpen, I have them ranked 16 out of 30. So they're just mediocre all around. Chris Bassett on the curve of 30, I have him ranked 15. So they're just mediocre. So vanilla ice cream equals the Toronto Blue Jays. So we'll see what they do. But they've had, like I said, the same ingredients for years. It's not getting them anywhere. They're not even close to touching the Orioles and the Yankees at this point. They're not even close to catching the Red Sox, actually. So, and I thought the Red Sox would be horrible this year. They're totally outperforming themselves. But the Rays are similar. So if you want my opinion on this particular game, I think the Rays have advantages in pitching and bullpen. So Rays probably take this game, I imagine, but I'm not betting it. It's not a client play.
Yeah, Toronto won 6-3 last night. Still playing hard.
Steve, I have no opinion on this game, so don't come for me for an opinion on this game, but I'm so in agreement with Brandon. The Blue Jays should trade every single one of those players that has any value and start over. Team isn't winning anything.
I agree, too.
Kikuchi,
they're the worst team of 5 in their own division right now, right?
Trade them all, get guys that are like somewhat big league ready. They have no one at AAA. There's no pitching in this organization. It's bad.
You're right.
They need to start over.
The problem is I rank farm systems too, and I have the Blue Jays farm system ranked 21 out of 30 teams. So
yeah,
they're pretty much screwed.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Well, Brandon, let me ask you this, Brandon, on that real quick. I'm sure you have the Orioles, the Norfolk AAA team is loaded again. They won the title last year. When James Wood was called up last month, he was 3rd on the top 20 prospect list. So I was looking at it, and the Orioles had 3 of the top 20, including the number 1 prospect a month ago, and they're still one of the best teams in majors. What would you do as a former scout, somebody in organizations? What would you do as the Orioles right now? I personally, as a semi-Oriole fan, hope they don't buy anything. I think they've got enough talent coming up. I think they have enough talent to win it right now. How would you handle that team as a scout?
I would just let it ride because the way
Okay.
they're going right now, they have, you know, a strong farm system. And as a matter of fact, I have their farm system ranked number one in Major League Baseball. But as a farm system, what that is it's replenishments for when something goes wrong. And the Orioles have lost a lot of their starting pitching, and they've replenished it quite nicely. And pretty much nobody's even noticed the fact that they have all these injuries because they're just gliding along. I would just let it ride, and I think that's probably what they'll do. I don't see the Orioles making a huge splash in free agency. They might add a bat or an arm, but probably not like Skubal or anything like that. I think Skubal will probably end up being with the Dodgers if they have enough money to bring him over. But yeah, I would let it ride if I were the Orioles.
Oh,
Well, the other thing too, of
I,
course, nowadays is that it's
I
hard to keep
totally
all your big
disagree.
names when the
I
contracts
totally
come up.
disagree with that. I completely disagree. I think the Orioles GM should be fired if he doesn't go out and get Crochet or a frontline starter. Like with this
Ooh.
team, you cannot trot Albert Suarez out on a playoff team every fifth day. McDermott came up, wasn't that great the other day. This is what I'm talking about.
But
like,
he won't have to
Povich
pitch
back down to
playoffs,
the
though.
minors.
That's the whole thing. It doesn't hurt you when you make the
Who
playoffs. They're
are,
going to make
okay,
the playoffs,
who's pitching in the playoffs? Who's pitching in the playoffs?
I agree. They're
Suarez
not
and
the
who
strongest three-man rotation. I do agree with that.
You
Albert
right now,
Suarez sucked
you
in
have
Japan.
5 guys.
I can't believe he got a job
You have
in MLB.
Norby, Stowers, Mayo, Holiday. All those guys should probably well, maybe not Holiday. He's still young, but like Norby, Stowers, Kjerstad, Mayo should probably be playing in the big leagues right now. Like they're just like down in Norfolk because there's no room for them on the roster. You have to take 2 of those guys and go get like a legitimate starting pitcher because this Orioles team actually could win this year. If I'm the Orioles fan base, I don't have another top starting pitcher. I am furious. Like they have to go get someone.
No, I totally agree. I think they need a playoff
lineup.
caliber starter. The reason I cringed when he said Crochet wasn't the concept; it was the name because he makes me very nervous.
Yeah, but why can't he be Andrew Miller? Why can't he be Andrew Miller from? He can be Andrew Miller from the 2016 Guardians if they really want him to be. I mean, how deadly was he in the playoffs? Right, like. You go someone almost have an opener and then have him come throw 4 innings of just flames.
Yeah.
Like,
well Brandon, we're going to get to best bets, but Brandon, let me ask you this about Crochet, though, as a former scout, because it makes me very nervous.
Adam, because in MLB, every team has a saying, you can never have enough pitching. So I'll meet you halfway and say, yeah, they could pick up an arm if they have the money.
Yeah, I'll leave it closing thoughts. We'll get to best bets here. But Crochet makes me nervous because this is a guy that's a reliever his whole career until this year. And he's already gone more innings than he's ever gone in the season. We're only halfway there. So I'd be very nervous mortgaging any kind of future to get him, although I think somebody will do that.
Better than Crochet.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. I think there's some options out there, but I don't disagree. The Orioles need another arm, I think, to be maybe the best team in the playoffs. All right, Adam, let's get to some daytime best bets here while we've got you here. And don't forget, WagerTalk today right around the corner in about 15 minutes. So stay tuned. Live TV on WagerTalk TV here on YouTube, YouTube Shorts, Instagram, TikTok, X, Twitter. You can watch us wherever you'd like on the go. Adam, we have another early daytime game at 1 o'clock Eastern here in about an hour. Tigers, Guardians. What are you doing with this as the best bet for the show?
Oof.
Yeah, I mean, I picked this game just because. So I just want to make something very, very clear. My best bet today is Nationals plus 1.5. It's a 4% play. I used it for big game breakdown because it's going to start soon. That's the game I would be betting. This is just, I needed something else to talk about. I do have some thoughts here. This is more of a big picture, so I think you could use this in the coming days. Right now, so 2 things. One, I had kind of said that the Tigers were very overrated coming into the season. They were one of the most popular season win total over bets out there. I felt like they were treated as an 85 to 90 win team by the market. Never thought they were that. And in recent weeks, it sort of swung in the other direction to where the Tigers are actually a little bit undervalued. As crazy as that sounds, based on where they were earlier in the year, and they've actually started to bounce back a little bit. Like, I believe there's 11-5 in their last 16 games. They're starting to hit a little bit. Do I think they're going to get back in the mix? No, probably not. But they're probably undervalued from a game-to-game basis. The Cleveland Guardians, on the other hand, are very overvalued. You want to talk about another team that needs pitching? The starting pitching situation in Cleveland right now is getting dire, right? Like it's And hopefully, I saw Bobby left the game early. I think he's probably going to be fine. But once you get past him, it is rough. And, this is another team that I could only fade right now because they're 21 games over 500, but they're trotting like Gavin Williams, Ben Lively, Carrasco. Like, these are not guys that are going to win games in September and October. Gavin Williams specifically pitching today, he was horrific in rehab. He's come up. He's been bad since he got called back up. I don't know how you don't just play against this guy. Actually, the one game that he actually threw pretty good, I was against him. It was this matchup. It was in Detroit. And thankfully, Kiter Montero fired a gem, and I believe I won the game 1-0. It was Gavin Williams' only good outing, and now the Tigers are going to get to see him again. But the key here is that was like 3 weeks ago when the Tigers couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat. Now the Tigers are hitting a little bit. So that, I think the combination of the Tigers hitting and now getting to see Gavin Williams the second time, who's really been very unimpressive throughout his entire time at rehab and since being called up, is definite value on the Tigers. Now, the Guardians are still a very good team. They still have a very good bullpen. So there's all those things in play. But they did win a close game last night, and the Tigers have played well against the Guardians this year. They've had some success in this matchup. So I'm not going to, that's really it here. I would say just from a straight up numbers value play, when I wrote this one down, it was plus 135. It looks like the Tigers are taking a little bit of money. I definitely agree with that. I would have zero interest in the Guardians and Gavin Williams today. So give me the Tigers in their bullpen game, as another look on Thursday's card.
It's Adam Trigger looking at one of the early daytime games. Yet another benefit watching us live at 11 a.m. Eastern every weekday here on WagerTalk TV. In Tokyo, Brandon, we have covered all 8 games now officially, because you're going to look at the late game tonight, the Athletics and Angels. And by the way, we appreciate all the live questions coming in on all the different chats. International Brown says, how can I take any handicap bets from someone who dresses like Clive Davis? Well, in your defense, Clive's a good-looking man, first of all. I knew Brandon would enjoy that. But, Brandon, your numbers speak for themselves. You were once again number one this season. And tell us about some of those records. Number one in MLB profit this year, number one in all sports for this calendar year, and number one in all sports 3 of the last 4 years. So, Clive, I would listen to your handicap on any baseball game, whether it's Japanese, Korean, or MLB, and give us a little take on what you're doing in this late-night game also with the A's and Angels.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I do have one feature MLB play out today, and WagerTalk's doing a special. All of us cappers can pick one feature play and make it $5. So I do have a $5 play out in MLB. So go grab that at my page. Like Steve said, I'm number one in MLB profit in 2024, and I'm number one all sports this year and 3 of the last 4 years. So let me talk about this game. My best bet for the show is going to be in the A's and Angels game. So as a capper, and Adam could probably attest to this because he likes to bet those underdogs, but what we like to do is find value where the books are sliding certain teams, but those teams are actually sneakily pretty good. A's are one of those teams, actually. We mentioned the Miami Marlins earlier. The Marlins have a great bullpen, and they're hitting quite well right now, so they're a dangerous team. The A's, not quite as good as the Marlins, but look at my rankings. I mean, I have the A's hitting number one in MLB, and that doesn't mean they're the best team in MLB. It means current form added to all-season form, plus I use a lot of peripheral stats for that. To get my rankings, but I have the A's hitting number one in MLB right now. But they're going to be an underdog in almost every game they're in. So the A's are a great team to take a team total over on some days. And I have their bullpen ranked number 8 in MLB. So the A's are not as bad as the books like them. So the A's are one of those teams. The Marlins are another one of those teams. The Tigers that Adam was mentioning are another team that I like to take team total overs on because they're sneaky good and they're always underdogs. So the A's today, maybe not necessarily an underdog today, but they're playing Kenny Rosenberg, and he did shut them down for 1 run in 4 innings But let's face it, Kenny Rosenberg's not exactly a household name. I think the number one lineup currently in MLB can probably take his 1.6 plus whip and shoot it out of any ballpark in America. So I don't think he'll have quite this much success against this lineup the second time around. And I have the Angels bullpen ranked 27 out of 30 teams. So I like the A's team total over 4.5 here. I think they're going to get to Rosenberg, and I also think they're going to torch this bullpen. And the A's are the hottest hitting team in MLB right now. Believe it or not, everyone likes to stomp on the A's, stomp on the Marlins, stomp on the White Sox, the Tigers. But some of these teams can make you a lot of money if you just take their team total and ignore the bullpens. So that's what I'm doing today. A's over 4.5 is my best bet for the show.
The hottest offense in baseball. What a way to end the show. Who thought we'd be saying that this year? We talked about the Dodgers being underrated. How about the A's, the hottest offensive team in baseball, as we close out Thursday's MLB First Pitch? That's Tokyo Brandon. I am Steve Merrill. That's Adam Trigger. We'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern to do it again on Friday live with your viewer questions. Don't forget, Wager Talk today is up next here in 10 minutes live here. I'll be co-hosting today with Teddy Covers, and we've got some great guests, as always. Mark Zeno, Ralph Michaels, the chart master. Be talking a lot of football on this show from both of them, and also UFC talk with Kyle Anthony coming up on Wager Talk today. And don't forget, $5 Thursday customer appreciation, the only day this week that you can get a best bet from every single capper, no promo code needed, for just $5 right now this Thursday, wagertalk.com. Check out sportsmemo.com as well. Thanks for watching. Best of luck. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.